What's up, y'all? Welcome to my YouTube channel. Y'all know it's Jada Marie. And if y'all follow me on Instagram or listen to the podcast, y'all know that last year I had a goal of reading 2 books a month, which means that I was supposed to read 24, but I read 19, and that's fine, okay? Because 19 is better than none. But I just want to share with y'all the books that I read, kind of do like a book review. I'm not going to go into super great detail about the books, but the genres that I read was romance, thriller, historical fiction, mostly thriller and romance. So I do have a favorite thriller book and a favorite romance book, and I'm going to let y'all know which one that is. And yeah, hopefully y'all can take some of these reads and add them to y'all books to read. I feel like a lot of us were reading the same book, but let's get started. The first book that I read last year in 2024 is Hookshot. So this is by Kennedy Ryan. And if anybody knows anything about Miss Kennedy Ryan, she has different series. She has hoop series. They're small. They're like 3 books. And the good thing about it is you don't have to read them in order. If you do read them in order, you have a little bit more information about characters that they bring up, backstories, all of that. But Hookshot is a part of a series called the Hoop series. You have Long Shot, Block Shot, and then Hookshot is the last book. And I enjoy reading this book. Out of all 3 of them, I think that Hookshot could be my favorite. Hookshot could definitely be my favorite, but that's out of the series. That's how I started 2024, reading Hookshot. And then the girls influenced me to read Verity by Miss Colleen Hoover. I'm not gonna lie. I know that when you read this book, there is a debate about if you believe the transcript or if you, I forgot, it's either the transcript or if you believe like the real story, something like that. I don't believe the transcript. I truly believe that Verity was crazy and she did those things. I don't think that it was for a book. That's my opinion personally. And I know that if some of y'all have already read the book, y'all already know what I'm talking about. But if you haven't read the book, just know you are in for a wild ride with this book. And I don't want to give away too many details because I want y'all to read. And then if y'all come back and y'all be like, let's talk more about this book, I'm down. Like, I'm down to talk about any book. So after reading Verity, I read The Housemaid, and I can say I enjoyed reading The Housemaid, but reading this book right after Verity, I feel like they were almost like similar in a way. Things were a little bit different, but it almost felt like the same story in a way. So I got through this book though. I read it, I enjoyed it, but baby, y'all know, as soon as I finished the book, I went to the store, I got off my couch, and I went and got The Housemaid's Secret. Now, I liked The Housemaid's Secret better than The Housemaid because it was a different story from, like I told y'all before, I thought that Verity and The Housemaid were kind of aligned. So I like what Millie was doing in this book. I liked the plot of this book and I enjoyed reading it. I think I finished this book in like a week. When I say couldn't stop turning the pages, I really enjoyed this book. And before we get further down the list and before y'all ask, have I read the 3rd book? No, I have not read the 3rd book. I don't know how I feel about actually spending like $20-something on that book. And people who have read all 2 books, both of these books, and read the 3rd one, I really wasn't pressed to go and read the next book, but who's to say? I might read it in 2025 and y'all might hear me talk about it next year. But let's get back to Miss Kennedy Ryan. As y'all can see, had me in a chokehold. Before I let go, I seen this book so many times on other people's books to read list. And finally, I just picked it up and I read it. And I appreciate the journey of these 2 main characters. I appreciate how Kennedy Ryan was able to write a romance book, but it did not feel like, oh, I've read this before. And I think reading Before I Let Go allowed me to get to be in parents' shoes and see why they make certain decisions as far as their kids. And it just allowed me to see this lady and get into her head about how she feels about her relationship with her daughter, her relationship with her ex-husband, and just all of that. And Before I Let Go might be turned into a show. I think they said a movie. I don't know. If they do it, y'all know I'm watching. I'm fine without it. But Before I Let Go was a book that had me smiling, a book that I would recommend to people because it's just a different type of romance. We are still on the Miss Kennedy Ryan train. This could be us. Oh my goodness. This was my favorite book, my favorite romance book of the year. I felt like it touched on like self-love, self-development. I know a lot of people, they go through changes in their life, and this book just was going along with Soledad's journey and how she was able to pivot, that her biggest motivation was her kids and just, navigating this disgusting divorce, but also keeping her kids in mind. And that's my favorite book, the romance book. I don't know. I read a lot of other books, romance books, and I don't know if maybe I was just in a certain place in life where I really needed to read this book, but Soledad's journey it kept me smiling. Her kids, just everything made me really, really, really love this book. Now, we went to The House of Eve. I don't know if this will be considered a historical fiction book. It took place, well, maybe, yeah, because it took place, it's fiction. Shut up, don't listen to me. This is historical fiction. I enjoyed The House of Eve. I enjoyed seeing these two women and their different stories and how they were able to come together in the end without even knowing that they came together. Us as the readers, we knew that their stories merged. And yes, I was drawn to this book because she was a scholar. She went to college. The other character, she fell in love with a Jewish boy, and she was Black. And I think that when I read this book, it gave me insight on some Black people. A lot of Black people were comfortable in their communities, comfortable where they were. They didn't feel the need to go out with the white people and be in their world, in their space. They were fine where they were. And reading that book, I understood why her aunt, I think it was her aunt, why her aunt was the way that she was, and it made a lot of sense to me. So I really enjoyed The House of Eve. I don't know how to pronounce the author's name, but let me let y'all see. And I will be purchasing reading Yellow Wife by her because I've heard absolutely great reviews about that book. A love song for Ricky Wilde. This book was a little challenging for me because I felt like in the beginning there was just a bunch of unnecessary details. I just wanted the story, like, let's get to the point. Like, what's the story? This is a little bit of, like, I would say like fantasy romance maybe, but not like fantasy mystical, but almost a little mystical, but not. I don't know how to explain what's really going on in this book, but just know it takes you back. I enjoyed reading about the Renaissance and just what those times were like, whether it was true or not. It did make me want to look up some of the musicians that they brought up. And I can say that this may be my least favorite romance book of the year. But yeah, to each his own. I heard a bunch of great things about this book. A lot of people enjoyed this book. It just wasn't for Jada, but I finished it, got through it. Now let's get back to my thriller kick. A Flicker in the Dark. I enjoyed it. This book, 9 out of 10. I really appreciate just the journey that we were taking on. Stacey Wilmington, I really liked how she wrote. I liked how she was able to switch from past to present, and it wasn't hard. I didn't feel like I was getting lost. Because in some of these books, you will see that when people start to write books, sometimes they may, one chapter may be in the present, one chapter may be in the past. And sometimes that's a little hard to not keep up with, but if you are doing a book review and talking to people about what you read, I think it's hard for you to explain and keep jumping back and forth. But the twist, the story, the journey, thank you, Stacey. I enjoyed this book. I did. But it's another book by her that made it my #1 thriller. All the Dangerous Things, again, by Stacey Wilmingham. Wilmingham. I'm not even saying the right last name, and it's right in front of me. This is my top 1 thriller because reading both of these books back to back by the same author, she switched it up, and I'm not gonna lie, I almost felt like we were going in the same direction, and I was like, I don't know how I'm feeling about this. And to be honest, I think when we're reading books, you do want the book to go a certain way, and if it doesn't go your way, it's okay. This plot twist, read this, please. Like, read this book. I enjoyed that roller coaster ride. I enjoyed where it took me. I wasn't angry about how long it took for me to get to the end of the book to get my questions answered. That is my top one, #1. Now, I went back to Frida. I went to The Coworker. This book, Frida, I like Frida, but this book really made me feel like I was reading a Lifetime movie, and I wanted a little bit more. I wanted things to be a little bit different. I can say I would give this like a 7 out of 10, but it wasn't anything like The Housemaid, and honestly, this book kind of gave me that green light of I need to take a break on Frida. So I really haven't read anything about Frida. I haven't read anything else by Frida, but if somebody who I feel like has read the same books as me and they feel the same way about The Coworker, but they're like, no, you got to read this book by Frida, I'll read it. The Paris Apartment was not one of my favorite books. Maybe because I've never been to London. Maybe some of just the verbiage, some of the things that she was referring to, I just couldn't relate to because I did not know what she was talking about. I do think that this book could have been a great movie or like a great show. But as far as just like, reading through it, I did feel like it was kind of dragging me through. I did want to give up, but then it got to the point where, okay, I'm as invested as the sister. I want to know what happened to her brother. So I kept reading. There was a plot twist, but it still wasn't, I'm not going to be like, OMG, read it. So I went back to romance. And when I went back to romance, I gave Tia Williams another chance, and I read 7 Days in June. And I liked 7 Days in June better than I like A Love Song for Ricky Wilde. I really enjoyed going on this roller coaster with these characters, them just really trying to resist each other and just like their past. And I enjoyed the resisting, but at the end, you can't resist true love. And I enjoyed 7 Days in June. I think that book really made me want to continue to give Tia Williams another chance. I know she has some other books out there that I can read, but that was another book that I read. It Ends With Us. I read it in a week. I think I read this book in 3 days because my task was to read the book and finish it so we can go and see the movie. I know there's some discourse right now just about the two people that starred in the movie, but I ain't here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about what Miss Colleen Hoover wrote. I enjoyed this book. I enjoyed the book better than the movie. Again, I feel like It Ends With Us, and in the beginning when I talked about Long Shot, even though I didn't read it this year, I have never experienced domestic violence, so reading these books and being in these characters' heads and just seeing how they maneuver through this domestic violence, I think that they are good books to read. I think that It Ends With Us is a great book to read because, yeah, this lady, she might not have been abused as bad as some people may think abuse should be, but the fact that she didn't continue to allow the abuse to go on is major, and yeah, it's read the book. If you want to watch the movie, watch the movie. I say read the book. You get a lot more details. You get a lot more, you get to hear the advice that everybody around her is giving her. And I think that was lost in the movie. So up next is We Are Not Like Them. I don't know what to say, because at first I thought that this book was not for a black woman, but this book is for a white woman and for a black woman, because this is a interracial friendship, and you really get to see both ends. Not even both ends, not both sides. Here you are, you know, the roles are reversed. I think we normally get to see books about a successful white woman and her life is perfect and this is going this way, da 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 da. No, the roles are reversed. This black woman, she is doing her dream job, which is being a newscaster, but she has other goals that she wants to reach, and her covering this story is of course going to help her get to where she wants to be. And unfortunately, it's a story about something that her best friend's husband was involved in. And I think you should read the book. It gives you a lot of insight just on how the police force, how they stick together, how they go about things. I mean, these things aren't new to certain... Oh, that scared me. These things are not new to certain people, but you get to see just characters really live this out and play this out. 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know if this is considered romance. I don't know what this is, just drama. This could definitely, I would say this is another, what if we're gonna do top 5, make this number 3. This book reminded me, for some apparent reason, just a little bit about Whitney Houston, but not really. Miss Evelyn Hugo, I enjoyed this book. Again, I really do want to go into more detail about these books. Not gonna lie, I might make a separate video just going into detail about my top 5 books, because there are things that I want to discuss about these books. Because this book, after reading this book, I'll never see Hollywood the same. I will think twice about, you know, just what is being presented to us as far as entertainment, and not in a bad way, but it's a lot of things that Evelyn Hugo goes through that I think sometimes people have to ask themselves, how bad do I want something? How bad do I want this dream? So I think that not even this dream, but how bad do I want better for myself? And that's what Miss Evelyn Hugo did. She wanted better for herself. She wasn't letting anybody get in her way. And some people could be like, she used people, she was ruthless, she was this, she was that, but she did what needed to be done. Take My Hand, historical fiction. I don't even think this would be fiction. But it could be. I feel like this is real. This is something that really happened. But this is about a nurse who has clients that are young, and she has to give these girls birth control shots. And you know, you really start to learn that Depo weren't good for these girls. They talk about the men, the Tuskegee syphilis case, and this girl, it's her job to help, but she starts to realize these people aren't trying to help these people like I am, and I'm the one that's being complicit, and I am giving out these medications and these things that end up hurting people. And we just go through her journey about her figuring out how far does she take this, how much help does she give this family, because you know, you don't want to be that person that seems to come in and try to make things better for people when they are used to a certain way of living and they're okay with how they are. They don't want you to think of them as a project. They're okay with what they're doing. And so this book really took me, it took me through an emotional roller coaster, but I thought that the book was going to end in a way of how we live today. Like, I already knew it was going to be like that, but it didn't. And I do recommend people to read this, Take My Hand. And then after Take My Hand, I read Memphis, and at first I was like, what are we doing? How long? Because it wasn't getting to the point. But this book, I think in times where I really wanted to understand family and how families get through hard times, and just how Black people just exist, even though they are continue to be suppressed, but they still made it happen, made it work. And this book was just a story about that, where yeah, we a family, we go through our ups and downs, but they really took that base and that root of family, and they stuck together and they did what needed to be done. And I like that book. So I got one more book that I ended my 2024 with. And as I sit here and record this today, 12 days into 2025, yeah, so I ended my year. Let me see if y'all can get that. Parable of the Sower. And I am very grateful that I read this book. In some parts of the day, I just be like, damn, why did I read that book? This book, you needed it. Just like I explained on the podcast, it felt like a big hug. More than anything, it felt like a big hug until shit got real. Until I started to feel like, oh my goodness, how could a book be planned out in real life? And I did pick up Parable of the Talents. I am going to take my time to get through that book. This book I was able to get through thanks to the Friend Zone. They have a segment, or they have a series called The Lituation, where they read books, and they read this book together. Well, not together, but they read it and then they came and talked about it together. And I think them having that discussion helped me understand this book. It really didn't make me feel fearful. I mean, even now, I still don't feel fearful, because people are going to do what needs to be done. At the end of the day, there are horrible humans out there, but I think that there are more good humans than there are bad humans. And instead of using Parable of the Sower to scare anybody, if people want to prepare, I think that this is a good book to get you started to think about how to prepare. But just sitting with what I read in this book and sitting with the things that have been going on the last couple of days, I ran across somebody who studied Octavia Butler, like studied her, to the point where I do want to reach out to this girl, because she explained to us that Octavia Butler only wanted to write in series, and she has a bunch of different other series before the Parable series. And if you read those books before reading this book, then you will understand how we got to this point. And I just want to emphasize how important it is for us to read, for us to share and talk amongst each other about what we're reading, how we're feeling. These days can seem very disgusting, very scary, but don't be scared. Just know that you have a calling, you have a purpose, and you will know what your purpose and your calling is. And we all don't have the same purpose and the same calling, but just talk to people and see where you can help. It might not seem like a lot, but even you reaching out to people, having those conversations, it takes you a lot further than you think it does. And so I hope that y'all enjoyed my reads of 2024. I read 19 books, and my goal for 2025 is again to read 24 books, because I didn't hit that goal last year. But I know I'm going to hit this goal this year, maybe with a little bit more books. And I will be talking to y'all as I finish books in great detail. You can always go check out my podcast, The Language, where I have a segment called Bookies, where I talk to my bookies and I talk about the books that I'm reading and how I'm feeling. So yeah, if you want to discuss any of these books, if you want me to go into more detail about these books, y'all know what to do. Leave it in a comment. Y'all can like this video, comment on this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I hope that I can have more conversations with y'all about the books that I have already read, about books that I am looking forward to reading in this new year. And if you don't have time to read a book, hey, make your goal 2 books. A book is better than no books. Please keep yourself educated. If you feel like you need to disconnect, know that reading is always the best way to disconnect. It's like getting into your own little TV show, whatever, however. But yeah, I hope y'all have a good rest of y'all day. Bye.